Today I have with me Mr. Alex Lowe, actor. Would you describe yourself as a comedian?
I think so. Comic actor,
Yeah,
I
comic
guess.
actor, comic actor. Now, we first got in touch. It was Lucy Bryers who first put me in touch with you when I wrote the authorized biography of Richard Bryars many years ago. You were the very first person I interviewed because obviously it had to be okayed by the family, etc.
Right.
And Lucy said the first person you need to speak to is Alex Lowe. So
You're
before we
kidding.
start talking about Alex Lowe, just tell me about your bit about your background as an actor and about what you did with Bryars, because you spent some time in Tuscany with him.
Well, I'm delighted she said that. I was a child actor from the age of about 12. And then as part of that, I did Another Country, the play in the West End. It was
Yep.
1982 Play of the Year. I was 14 at the time. And that put me in touch with Kenneth Branagh. So he then got me to work with Renaissance Theatre Company, where I worked with Dickie Bryars.
Yep.
I worked with Richard Bryars on Uncle Vanya, which went round the country. I was
Yep.
playing Workman, was a very tiny part, but I was also understudying for Peter Egan, his oppo from
Wow.
Ever Decreasing Circles.
Of
Um,
course.
and I was understudying for Astrov, who's the old doctor in
Yeah.
sort of world weary doctor in Uncle Vanya. So I knew Dickie Bryce from that, and then of course after that we met doing Peter's Friends. I was in the film Peter's Friends with Kenneth
Yep.
Branagh, and then after that we did Much Ado About Nothing in Italy,
Yeah.
where I
Yeah.
had spent a lot of time sitting around with Richard Bryars on the set, listening to him and Brian Blessed's endless anecdotes and going and fetching them a cup of tea and that sort of thing.
That must
So,
have been amazing.
oh, it was, I can't tell you
God.
how fantastic it was.
Yeah.
And I still remember loads of their anecdotes. Of course, if you see Brian Blessed, all these years later, he'll tell you the same anecdotes, sort of word for word, with every last
Yeah.
glockel
Yeah. Yeah.
stop. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so Dickie Bryars, I mean, I got on with him famously, and he was so lovely. And the other thing, of course, about Richard Bryars is that his mum ran the play group near us in northwest London, and
Yeah.
and sort of she was sort of running the play group when my brother was there as a little boy, so we always
Wow.
kind of felt that he was our celebrity, Richard Bryars.
Yeah. Because he
Real,
was always the thing of the sort of the irony about Bryars was that everybody was sort of seen as this sort of like the nation's uncle, this very sort of wholesome, the good life, etc.
yeah,
But he loved a drink, he
yeah,
smoked his backside off, and he was a
yeah,
prolific swearer. He was. I mean, blessed. When I worked with Brian on his 2 volumes of autobiography, he told me that who was the guy who did the music for Much Ado?
Patrick Doyle, Paddy
Yeah,
Doyle.
him, Paddy Doyle, Branagh, and Bryars used to have huddles and have swearing competitions, where they would basically, it was this thing, and the one who failed would be out, and then it would be left down to 3
I,
and then 2.
I can well believe that. I can well
Yeah,
believe that. Yeah, I mean, great fun, hilariously funny.
yeah,
They were really funny, and I often think I might be wrong about this, but I think there's a sort of change in culture. I've met young actors before who are offended by that sort of thing, and
really.
yeah, and would be offended by the sort of pecking order. I had no qualms about going to get him a cup of tea, or getting him a sandwich or some biscuits or whatever from the catering wagon, and it was
Yeah,
just a chance to listen to that stuff. I just think. I don't know, I might be wrong, but I have met actors who have sort of done their training. No, this is an egalitarian company. But
yeah,
I'm just so old now. It's just that's the thing, sit down, listen to people,
yeah,
hear their stories, however offensive. you know.
yeah, yeah. How did you then? Because obviously you're working with Branagh, a great deal of that was straight. You might call straight acting. How did you get into comedy? What was your first break into comedy?
I tell you what happened. I got to about 30. Well, I was 30, and I'd done all these films when I first started, and like lots of things in the arts, there's absolutely no career progression.
Yeah,
It was great for the first. I did 4 feature films in my first 4 years of being an actor, and suddenly nothing happened. So I joined the BBC radio rep, doing all the radio plays and,
Yeah.
reading them, bits on Woman's Hour, what have you. And I got to about 30 and I thought, this waiting around for everyone else to beat a path to your door is a waste of time. And I'd always, comedy's sort of always been my first love. And so it was a very definite move to go to Edinburgh and try my hand with my own show. I think really I was a frustrated stand-up and I was too
Yeah.
frightened to go out and do stand-up. So I picked this book by Simon Garfield about British wrestling. And then the next year I did something about Radio 1, where it was great comedy monologues, fascinating monologues from, Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, Jackie Pallow, and these people. And then a year later, I did these kind of great monologues where I was Simon Bates and DLT, and
So were you hiding behind a character in the sense that you didn't want to stand there as Alex Lowe and tell
lots of
gags?
characters. Yeah, lots of characters,
Yeah.
and also they were comedic in a, because they were the real words of the real people. So it
Yeah.
was not like live or die by writing material in your bedroom and then trying it out. So it was a
Yeah.
lovely halfway house. And I thought it sort of fitted me as a comedy actor. Um, I now realize there's absolutely no replacement for writing your jokes, going and doing them, sticking your head in
Yeah.
the lion's jaws and doing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether Edinburgh still does this for people, but it sort of paid off because the first time I did it, Peter Kay came to see me to review it for Edinburgh Nights, and that's how I met Peter. And the second time I did it, Ian and Damon Beasley from the 11 o'clock show, now then made the Inbetweeners, they came to see me, and I did something on the 11 o'clock show for 2 series. So it was,
Wow.
I'm sure people go to Edinburgh now seeking their fame and fortune, and it sort of doesn't happen. But it was just a bit smaller in those days, and I think
Is
it
anything
sort of pay off.
anything you did at Edinburgh? Is any of it on YouTube? Any of the sort of the wrestling monologues? Anything like that?
I'm really, really annoyed to say that we lost the VHS of the
Oh
wrestling
no, it's a
show.
shame. Yeah.
There's me talking about it on Edinburgh Nights somewhere, and there's me talking about Radio 1 on Edinburgh Nights.
Yeah.
But sadly, no, none of that is filmed. It's really infuriating.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Now we move on to. I mean, you're about to tour for virtually a whole year, aren't you? I think
Yeah,
it's in February to July as Clinton,
that's right. Middle of June as Clinton,
middle of
and then
June.
I'm going to have a little bit of time off, and then I start again as Barry from Watford in the autumn, and then we're coming back next year with Clinton again.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I really love getting on stage and showing off, but I have
Yeah.
started thinking recently, I've just turned 58. I am a bit knackered, so I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I'm hoping,
Yeah.
it's great, hope it's fun.
Of course it will be. I mean, let's start with we'll sort of go backwards, back to front. We'll start with Barry, because that's how I became aware of you comedically, if you like. Steve Wright in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I was an avid listener because I was a big Kenny Everett fan, and I went on to Steve's show with Barry Cryer to talk about my Kenny Everett book. And he was kind of a content where he was sort of a product of what Everett had
Yeah.
created,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And credit him, and said as much so. And he created more of a feel good factor, Steve Wright, with his radio show than I think anyone else on earth. But Barry from Watford, you became a regular
Yeah.
on his show. I don't know what's the genesis of Barry. It didn't start with Steve Wright.
No, I used to. I really, that was a shameless attempt to invent a character and get it on somewhere. It was. It didn't
It
happen.
worked.
It didn't happen organically, but I found I could do a very accurate impression of my Cockney family from Bermondsey and Deptford, you see. And I worked up this voice, and I thought, oh my God, that's so accurate. And so I phoned Ian Lee who was on LBC at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
And really, in the same way that Peter Cook, not comparing myself with Peter Cook, but if you're a show off. You will find any outlet to do your stuff. But Peter Cook used to phone up as Sven, the Norwegian fisherman. And I just started phoning up every night, and people thought it was a real guy. Ian
Yeah,
knew it was me after about 5 minutes. And
yeah,
Ian, who of course I knew from the 11 o'clock show. And
yeah,
so I started doing that, and then I think the newsreader, people might remember this name, Fenella Fudge,
yeah,
newsreader
yeah.
by
Absolutely.
Fenella Fudge. She
Yeah,
got in touch with me and said, "God, I'd love Steve, not Ian Wright, it's someone totally different, Steve Wright, to hear this character." And so Steve heard it and said, "Come in, we need to find an angle." Oh, I know, isn't he? What about he's a sort of lifestyle coach? We did it for
yeah,
one day, and he said, "We've had huge response. Can you keep
yeah,
coming in?" And I must have done it for 10 years off and on. I
yeah,
mean, like sort of maybe, I don't know, sort of 10 times a year I'd go in and do it.
yeah.
But it became quite a fixture. And
I did.
it was lovely. And it's one of those things where young people won't get this, but they won't probably don't realize how part of the sort of fabric of the country those radio
Yeah.
DJs were.
Oh
Steve
God,
Wright
yeah,
being the absolute king of that, along with Kenny Everett.
yeah,
And so to
absolutely.
be there having Steve Wright opposite me, for a man of my age, and advising me and saying I wouldn't do this and why don't we do that? And yeah, why don't we do a joke that goes something like this? And
Yeah,
it was, I would take that from him. There's few
of
people,
course.
quite often I think, "Oh, what a terrible idea." But with Steve, you'd go, okay. And he was sort of versed absolutely, up to his hilt with showbiz. He
Yeah.
got it.
Did you
He
do it in
knew it.
character? Did you dress up? Did you do it in
I did
costume?
not.
Sorry.
No, I did.
No. Because
No,
I
I
always
mean,
wondered, I always because obviously
no,
you're
no.
listening and you hear the voice and you know that they're all sitting around together, and you often think, do you actually do it in order to make it authentic for them? Do you dress up? But
Um,
perhaps you don't. Well, obviously you didn't have to.
no, maybe not. Yeah, that might have been a nice idea, but in those days, I used to wear the full prosthetic. I'm
Yeah.
old now. I don't have to. I just have a prosthetic nose. So the prospect of putting it all on and going in there, too much effort.
Yeah. What I used to love. I mean, fortunately, if people watching this are new to Barry from Watford, a great place to start, I suppose, is Minty Biscuit, which is one of
Yes.
your very not the funniest, but one of
No.
the best known phone-ins that you did with Ian Lee.
Yeah.
But the Radio 2, Barry from Watford, Radio 2, it's just an absolute joy because Stephen and everyone there, and I know some of it was rehearsed. I assume some of the lines, some of the comebacks, etc. But
Yeah.
they're all desperate to laugh. They know that they're going to wet themselves laughing, and it's
Oh,
just
that's nice.
different people lose it at different times all the way through. It's joyous.
Well, he would always sort of bowl a googly and just throw something in, and I'd be happy to think, "Oh, how am I going to deal with that?" But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, there were. I'm sure it was a lot that was edited out, and occasionally, I mean, he had a really, of course, if you're broadcasting on the BBC, he'd have a really great antennae about. Can't say that. Can't say that. So I
yeah,
would always push the envelope and then be brought back a bit.
yeah. And did that come to a natural end, or did it finish when Steve died, or I think it was
Well,
before, wasn't it?
I think he sort of, it sort of fizzled out only because I've been doing it for 10 years. But I mean, this sounds really mercenary, horrible of me, but just before he died, I got an email from him saying perhaps we could do it again. And
Oh,
I don't know in what form, whether he was going to go. I mean, you maybe know better than me, whether you had other offers for digital channels, but I was mad keen to do more. And then the next
yeah,
I heard he'd gone. So
yeah.
yeah, desperately
No,
sad, but never
yeah,
mind.
indeed. What's you're touring with Barry, shooting from the new hip.
Yes.
Um, how does he compare? How does he differ writing for Barry against writing for Clinton? Because Clinton, it's fair to say, is the better known and has
Yes.
the history with Phoenix Nights, whereas Barry was, I suppose, he was like One Direction. He was created for a reason.
I think I, well, that's an interesting one. Uh, Given that, Barry is, no one's supposed to know this, but I don't. This will come out and people will know. Barry is supporting Clinton on tour. So
Oh, is
funny
he?
enough, only today, I know it's make me even more exhausted. Only today, I was talking with my co-writer, Brendan O'Hay, who's my director and co-writer, who you may know has just brought out that book with Dame Judi Dench about her life with Shakespeare.
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah,
So Brendan is great, brilliantly funny, fantastic director. And we've been really sort of agonizing over the difference in character for a kickoff. That Clinton is quite, well, he's a sort of Trumpian figure. He
yeah.
has no self-awareness.
No,
He's a sort of idiot, but we like the bullying element to think. I always think there's quite something quite funny. I've probably said this before, where someone with a low status tries to play high status. It allows
yeah,
the audience to feel slightly more superior, and we
yeah,
can see the
yeah,
cogs working. Whereas
yeah,
Barry is different in that he's essentially a pretty nice bloke,
yeah,
but in
yeah,
the way that my old Cockney lot were, don't suffer fools. So
yeah,
he comes in at quite high status and is quite assured of himself, although he
yeah.
says stupid things. You've got a sort of grudging respect for the bloke, whereas Clinton, you think,
Absolutely.
so I think
Yeah.
one is a high status character who lets himself down by being a bit thick, but we still sort of think he's quite high status. And the other one is low status, pretending to be high status. So it's something like
Do
that.
you obviously you can't say that which one you prefer? It's like choosing your own children. But is there
Yeah.
one that you prefer doing live?
Oh God, that's hard. I mean, I do like doing Barry just because it reminds me of my Cockney lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like doing Clinton because I don't know, people like it so much and it gets such a
It's
response.
kind of a household name, really now.
Yeah, I mean, God knows how that has happened. It's so strange because it was only 2 minutes on Phoenix Nights.
Phoenix Nights. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's sort of the reason. I can't pretend it's anything other than that. But I'm about to do my fifth UK tour,
yeah,
and it's really gratifying when people come to me and they say, "I've heard you on Chris Moyles or whatever. I really like this joke, or I've heard you on your podcast when I used to do a Clinton podcast." And there's certain jokes from there that they
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not just coming on doing Clinton's catchphrase from Phoenix Nights. It
No,
is
no.
nice that they know stuff I've written. I
Yeah,
think it'd be
yeah,
terrible
yeah.
if I came on, just said the catchphrase for an hour and went off.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah,
tedious.
exactly. Obviously, you have to do it, but you only have
Yeah.
to do it once. Yeah,
Yes, that's right. And it's always hard to sort of fit it in. We've got a way of doing it for this one. Uh,
right. Okay,
so yeah,
okay.
you have to do it. I mean, as catchphrases go, it is a particularly horrible one. For anyone, I don't know whether I'm allowed to say it, presumably I am. It uses the word nonce, which is, of
Yeah,
course, a word for a paedophile.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
referring to someone as that is the lowest. It's the
It
low.
is.
It don't get any lower than that.
Yeah,
So, as long as people take it as a joke, we're all right.
yeah.
But,
Indeed. Before we move on to Clinton, just going back to Barry a second, has one member of your family sort of said, "That's me. You're doing me," or are they aware of the fact that they're I'm sure in a very
yeah,
in a very respectful and loving way are being sort of
lampooned in a fun. Well,
lampooned?
do you
Yeah,
know what? Do you know what? My dad, bless him, when he was still with us, I asked him what he thought his dad would make of this character, and he said, "I think he'd absolutely love it." So that was
yeah.
fine for
That's
me.
good enough for you.
But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was always really pissed off. I did Loose Ends once as Barry, and Clive Anderson said, "You're just taking the mickey out of old people, aren't you?" And I thought, "Oh God, I hope that's not because that's not my intention."
no.
As I
He's
say,
the only person I've ever heard say that ever.
right, but I want
Yeah, nobody else thinks that.
as I say, he is a high status guy, and he's got this way of speaking, which a lot of old people do, where your
Yeah,
sort of esophagus has collapsed,
yeah,
you don't have the lung capacity, uh, and that's sort of affectionate and comical. I don't think,
yeah.
you know,
Has
he,
anyone ever? Has anyone else ever suggested what Anderson suggested, that you're taking the piss out of old people?
um, not really. I've had people who didn't
Uh,
quite understand what it was. I remember when I
that's
did.
the same with any comedy character.
Oh
You'll
God,
always get
you can always, can't you? I mean,
Of
that's
course, yeah,
people's job nowadays to sort of pull the rug from under you and say it's all offensive. But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I remember doing the late edition with Marcus Brigstock and Bill Dare, the late great Bill Dare, and they had an idea once where Barry was going to eat some dog food, and I had to go, no, he would. Why would he do that? He wouldn't do.
yeah,
I mean, he's a bit thick, but he's not that thick. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's occasionally people sort of don't get that. I think the dignity of the bloke,
yeah.
and I don't know
If
why. No one would do that. None of my relatives
no,
eat dog food. So
if if there are people watching this who are new to Barry from Watford, what seriously, where's the best place to start? Because if it's a new character, if they've only literally heard of him on this on this
yeah.
interview, where's the best? I would go probably with Steve Wright, but you need to get the visual as well first of all.
Yeah, I mean there's videos of me doing the late edition, going out and speaking to people in the street. There's
Yeah,
tons of videos people take. I did for ages did a show at the 100 Club in the middle of Oxford Street called Barry's
yeah,
Bingo, which was
yeah,
just people filming me, filming Barry. So that's got
yeah,
some nice moments. There's all sorts of little sketches and things where with Barry with the full prosthetic. I mean, at one stage, God, I've done so many pilots, blimey. I did a pilot for Sky Atlantic called Barry, which I wrote with Fraser Steele, who, used to write for Jonathan Ross for many years, maybe still,
yeah,
which we made through Baby Cow for Sky Atlantic, which is much more of a comedy drama. I'd say comedy drama. It was a short, but it was a
yeah,
pilot. And that is sort of Barry, maybe in a slightly subtler way, not
yeah.
effing and
Okay.
jeffing all over the place.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
there's all sorts out there. But yeah, to see the face and the prosthetic, which, as I say, I don't have to use anymore because I'm so old. Those are probably good places to start.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What have you got planned for the tour? Obviously, it's not as vast as Clinton's, but what is about 15 dates, something like that?
Yeah, the Barry show is based on something I did many, many years ago at the Edinburgh Festival, but it's still I mean I didn't do it enough. And it's based on the archive of Harold Bain, who used to make Quota
Of
Quickie,
course, from Leeds.
right? The Harold Bain
Yeah,
archive.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and the guy who owns it, Richard Jeffs, I met many years ago, and he showed me these films. I said, "Oh my God, it's a beautiful archive." He
yeah.
shot everything in, on a glorious day, a summer's day in Britain, and it just looks so lovely. And I thought,
Did he
well,
do the Telly Savalas
yes,
ones?
he did. Telly Savalas
He
in
did
Birmingham. Telly Savalas
in
goes to
Birmingham,
Birmingham,
etc.
and so
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
Pete Murray in Hastings, and there's all this sort of stuff. And I just thought, wouldn't it be great if these are Barry's home videos? And so
brilliant,
you pick
brilliant.
random people to say, that's my wife Margaret on the Dodgems, down in Poole, or what have you. And it's not, I don't know who it is. But it's so beautiful. And
That's
there's
so clever.
so many lovely comic moments. So
Yeah,
I've revived that, and it's interspersed with lots of Barry's sort of stand up. But it's kind of irresistible. And I mean, hopefully people like the comedy, but if nothing else, this glorious Technicolor footage is
yeah.
something to behold.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, well, I'm going to come and see at least. I think you're going to Ilkley, aren't you? The Millionaires
So
Playground of Ilkley.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
definitely. Well, hopefully we can meet up. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll definitely be there. So on to Clinton. You say this is your fifth tour, and you're going to be touring next year as well. So that's your
yeah,
sixth. What you obviously we know Phoenix Nights. That's where it originated for you. Where did it originate for the chaps who invented it? I'm sure it was Peter Kay, Neil,
yeah.
and
Dave
Dave Spikey.
Spikey. Yeah,
Was it?
well, according to Neil, it's very much based on Derek Acora. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
rocket science.
No.
But I
No.
think there was a guy. I'm always being told this story. That there was a guy they saw. I think you know this story, James. Wasn't there a guy? I think it was someone who was on the circuit who used to do. I can't remember his name, but they famously found it hilarious. He said to someone, "And you drive a red car, don't you? You've been in an accident with a red car. No, you got a family who's been in an accident in a red car. No, no. Stay away from any red cars." Like they thought it was so lame and
That's brilliant.
So that was sort of based on this guy, and I can't remember his name. He's probably doing him a disservice if I can remember it. But yeah, so that's where they got it from. But he is a sort of he's just from the old school end of the
Yeah,
pin, the working men's club thing. So I
yeah,
think that's sort of why people like Clinton. One, it's a sort of hark back to a yesteryear of,
yeah.
men's clubs and all that.
1980s,
Plus,
70s.
yeah,
Yeah,
we sort of get it, but there'll always be these sort of hokum merchants, these
yeah,
snake oil salesmen
yeah.
who will
Of
always
course.
do this stuff. So it's something it's easily recognizable. It's
Yeah,
not rocket science. We know what he's doing. And or
yeah,
whether it's a sort of the sort of new age juju that people enjoy, or whether it's this
yeah.
old school stuff, or whether it's you just like seeing someone being bad at something.
Same
It's easy to enjoy on all sorts of levels.
same question that we talked about with Barry, as in, you said about Clive Anderson coming up and sort of
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, you're just attacking old people." I'm assuming, perhaps rightly or wrongly, that you've had more a bit more of a mix of reactions with regards to Clinton, or I could be
Honestly,
completely wrong.
touch wood, I well, I mean, I 95%, if not more, is very positive. Now that can
Brilliant. That's
easily
good to
turn
hear.
around. It can easily turn around. The thing that I get a lot is, "Oh, you're not from the north. I'm dead disappointed." And they find
Yeah,
out from Pinner in Middlesex. I couldn't be more sort of southern. And that's the only thing. It's so amazing how regionalist everyone is in this tiny
yeah.
island. It's extraordinary, they're sort of, I thought you're not from Bolton, or I said I've been to Bolton a few times. My mate
But
Justin. Bolton.
I'm not blowing smoke, but bearing in mind, and I've seen Clinton, I've seen you lots of times, live and on YouTube, etc. And some of the stuff could easily people you could get, somebody who's not in a very good mood could easily take offence. And the fact that it doesn't happen, I think, is testament to the popularity of what you've turned
Yeah.
the character into and how beloved the character is, and the fact that you've tapped into people's sensibilities, and people just you bring
Well,
people along and it works.
I first of all, I'm look, if I say so myself, I'm not a very nasty person in real life. I
Yeah,
don't like to be nasty. I like to be an affable, nice guy.
yeah,
I think somewhere people can tell I'm never really going to say something too vicious. But I
yeah.
also steer well clear of going, "I've got your mum here. I've got your dead dog here." People, in case people go, "Oh, that's nice. I just buried her last week." So I keep
Yeah,
it very vague. And if it's
it's
anything,
clever. That's clever.
oh, I mean, I just wouldn't take the chance. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, I have had people. I remember doing the comedy cellar in Bracknell, and a guy literally got up and walked across the stage. I just started and said, "Sorry, I buried someone today. I can't have this." I mean, that's not my fault, is it? Maybe
No,
don't
of course not.
comedy show.
Of course not.
Um,
Yeah,
and I've had a guy, and you know this story. I know this, James. It's an old one where a guy took offence and tried to attack me, but he was a French fella. You know, the bloody
yeah,
French you like. No, he was French. He just didn't get he
yeah,
didn't get the sort of cabaret element.
yeah.
I used a word that I wouldn't normally use, or it's kind of knockabout. It's a filthy word that in Britain, it's common
Is
currency.
work a day. Yeah,
It's workaday. He was deeply offended. Also, he was pissed, and also he clearly had a temper or a drink
yeah.
problem or both. And
Frenchman with a temper and a drink problem. Give over. What a
and
stereotype. Yeah.
he went after me and had to be rugby tackled by my agent.
Wow,
He was going to kill me. That was terrifying.
bloody hell.
So
But that was more to do with him than it was you.
I think so. I mean, it was
Well,
in
I think
school
definitely.
PTA, gig. I don't
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
So I think, I mean, I say this, we're quite crude in the new show,
yeah.
and we cure a guy of
Good.
his hemorrhoids in the audience. I mean, it is a bit humiliating for some people, but there again, if people are going to sit near the front, they must know that this sort of thing's going to happen. I'm not going to go
Well, you
sit.
call it. Well, you said it was all. you described it as puerile the other day when we were chatting, but it's not the right word. It's not. It might be sort of childish or whatever,
Oh,
but
I'm glad you said that.
puerile's slightly. But purile's
Well,
negative
okay.
word. It
Well,
isn't at all.
this is how I feel about that.
Yeah,
It is childlike and it is a bit playgroundish.
yeah,
And
yeah,
occasionally I'm there thinking, oh God, am I really going to say that? How embarrassing. But I figure this, I have been in every sort of Radio 4 comedy you can name. I've
yeah,
done sort of classical theatre. I've done old school Charlie's Aunt theatre.
yeah,
I've done
yeah,
everything. I've written comedy for people, and this makes me laugh. It's not like I don't have any taste. This makes me laugh, and
yeah,
I think, do
yeah,
you want to have a laugh or don't you? I know
yeah.
people go,
Absolutely.
it's quite an interesting idea. What is it? There's touches of Waiting for Godot. I'm not interested in that. Do you want to have a laugh or don't you?
Yeah.
So it is. I mean, you're right. Puerile does have negative connotations, but it's kind of schoolboy playground.
Schoolboy. Yeah,
Schoolboy.
absolutely.
That makes me
Most
laugh. So,
most importantly of all, it is extraordinarily funny, and you've made such a success of the character. And yeah, it's the fact that you're doing so many gigs. How many gigs are you doing this year as Clinton?
oh God. Well, the
Eight
show
hundred
is
and ninety-seven, isn't it, or something like
the
that? It
show
probably
is
feels
something
like
like
it.
65 gigs for the tour. And then my agent just came with today with a list of other gigs. Do I want to do them? And because I'm so
Which
greedy, I said, yeah, all right, I
yeah,
will.
yeah, good for you. And you've sold out the Palladium. You've actually
Oh
sold out the
God,
Palladium, which
I
is a
know.
big. That's a big deal. Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's a
thank
big
you.
deal.
I'm very excited about that. I'm very nervous about it, but I'm always nervous about, every
Good.
performance.
If you weren't
But
nervous, it wouldn't
yeah, I
matter.
know. What I want to do is finish these rehearsals,
Yeah,
just get the whole thing in my bones, and then just go and
yeah.
do it. It's nerve-wracking.
Well,
That's all.
well, we've got to finish in a few minutes, so let's just talk about where you're going to be. It starts this month, doesn't it, Clinton? The
Starts
tour
next week. Next week,
next
yeah,
week.
on the
Hecky
13th.
some
Yeah, yeah.
right.
Starts in Basingstoke on the 13th. Portsmouth is not selling very well. I don't know why. Please come to
Really,
Portsmouth. Yeah,
Portsmouth, right?
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's too southern for Clinton or something. But for some
I don't
reason,
know.
Portsmouth. I had a look today. We've sold no more tickets this week. But the rest of it's selling out of its skin. Thank God.
I'll push this in Portsmouth online
Please,
Instagram. I'll sort of say hello, Portsmouth. Yeah, yeah,
please,
yeah.
please.
Anywhere else? Anywhere else that needs a push? Because
Uh,
there's a lot of. I've been looking at the your website, and well over half are sort of last remaining
oh
type gigs.
yeah, yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah,
we've sold 80% and we haven't started.
wow,
So I'm pretty pleased. And they're big
yeah.
venues. I tell you, it was Middlesbrough. Hello, Middlesbrough. Please
Hello,
come
middle
to Middlesbrough,
up the borough.
not the
Come on,
borough.
borough,
So yeah, I mean,
up the
look,
borough.
it's not too bad. It's selling quite well, but some of them, for some reason, are just a lot less than most of them.
Yeah, yeah. You. 'Twas ever thus, wasn't it? Now,
Yeah.
look, I'm going to let you go because the time's nearly up. But we need to and will do this again. So, thank you very, very much indeed. I've really enjoyed it. We could have obviously, as is often the way, we could have talked for hours.
Thank you
But
very much.
no, it was brilliant, mate. So, Barry from Watford, September. What's the website?
Barry from Watford.co.uk, and the
Yeah.
show is called Shooting from the New Hip, and Clinton's show is called Spectral Intercourse, and go to clintonbaptiste.com.
Was it you who thought of the name, or was it
I,
your writer? It's
I,
absolutely fantastic.
I'm glad you said that.
Work of
Well,
genius.
I came up with that, and I said that to my wife, and she said, "You're too old for that sort of." That's smutty. And she said, would Ken Dodd have come up with that? I said, what's Ken Dodd got to do with it? I don't know. I think she sees me much more of a sort of family entertainer, but it's just a play on
No,
words.
it's brilliant. I think it's genuinely. I think that's a work of genius. I really
Ah,
do. But
great. Thanks, man.
and if anybody's watching this who doesn't know, maybe hasn't seen Clinton live, only seen him in Phoenix Nights, there is an entire show of Roller Coaster available to watch on
Yes, on YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah.
which will get you in the mood for some spectral intercourse,
Yes,
hopefully.
and we haven't reinvented the wheel. It's very similar sort of stuff to roller
It's
coaster.
brilliant. It's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
There's lots
I
of
love it.
jokes, lots of jokes. I
Yeah,
don't hang
yeah,
around and have a
yeah,
nice long narrative. I just like to get in there in case people are going, "Oh God,
yeah,
is that it? Is that the payoff?
yeah,
It's waiting for
yeah,
5 minutes for this." So
yeah.
tons of gags.
Brilliant. Excellent, mate. Well, look, thank you very much indeed, Alex, and best of luck with the tour, and I will speak to you soon.
Thank you. Cheers, James.
Thanks, mate.